There we go. See, this is what happens when we start stuff for the first time is we fail miserably and then we, figure stuff out as we go. So as I was saying to myself, I'm Scott. I'm with Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, and it is my joy to bring this new show to everybody. We've been around for about a couple months now, and we are up to an episode in season 1 called By Any Means Necessary. Now, if you are listening to the podcast, we're actually not there yet. We just dropped our first our episode of Believers, but we're going to be recording in advance. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're getting a little bit of a sneak peek of where we'll be here in several weeks from now. If you want to join in on the podcast, you can go ahead and subscribe to us at anchor.fm/Gray17 podcast. Again, that's anchor.fm/Gray17 podcast. So now what we're going to go ahead and do, that I've got this all figured out, is we're going to wait a few minutes to see if anyone else pops on the stream so we can do a live commentary. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit play on By Any Means Necessary and give a little bit of my spoilerly commentary on this episode before we go ahead and record our discussion with our newbies and our long-term fans in a couple days. So again, as I mentioned, our podcast has both newbies and long-term fans. What does that mean? That means we have some folks who are just watching Babylon 5 for the first time. So they are just up to By Any Means Necessary. In fact, some of them haven't even watched that yet, but they have until Sunday to watch that so we can record our discussion. So the first section of our discussion is completely spoiler free in terms of what happens after this episode. And then once we jettison the newbies, we go ahead and talk spoilers with our long-term fans. And the fun part about this is we get to answer questions and we get to answer predictions that our newbies have. And even the more sadistic part is we get to do it without them being able to hear the answers because, of course, we can't spoil them yet. And to be clear again, this commentary I'm about to do is a spoiler commentary. So if you are a newbie or you just haven't watched B5 in a while, I recommend you don't watch this. But if you are a long-term fan like me, here's what we're going to do. I'm using HBO Max, but I think your DVDs will work just as fine too. You can pause this right now, go ahead and queue up your HBO Max or DVD to the beginning of By Any Means Necessary, and I will tell you when we're going to go ahead and hit play. So again, this is your pause me and go set up your equipment and then come back and we will get ready to go and watch this episode together. And right now I'm just making sure that my audio is working because I do not want to be talking to myself again. Let's see if we are. Cool. We are good to go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit play in a 3, a 2, a 1. So we are now watching some actual new footage of B5, and I think we're going to see this more as we go through season 1, that they continue to add more CGI cutscenes to this. Now, good old Ivanova. Now, our newbies have had some interesting experiences with Ivanova. If you're listening to our show, some of our newbies dove right in and loving the character. And to be clear, Ivanova is one of my favorite characters of the entire series. But some of our newbies were not too happy with Ivanova. And so, which they are still getting to learn the wonders that is Claudia Christian and Ivanova. But it's a work in progress. I really enjoy this episode. Behind the scenes, I have done labor relations work before. I have my dad was a union steelworker and a union steward, and I have served on a school board and had to work on 3 different union negotiations with a teachers union, and also I've gotten some certification in labor relations. So this episode hits home for me. I love that computer voice of Babylon 5. It's definitely not a Star Trek voice that we're used to, but it works. Platform activated. And of course, the first thing when somebody tells you do not attempt to do something, you attempt to do something. So this guy is definitely a norm in terms of listening to commands. Now, again, the CGI, of course, is a little rough, but for 30 years ago, we got to remember that this show was way ahead of its time. At the same time, TNG and the first season of Deep Space Nine is going, and they are using still models for the most part. And basically because of budget, Babylon 5 couldn't afford to do that. So they had to go ahead and do CGI. And I think they've done a great job. And of course, it gets better as we go along, of course. But even for season 1, it's not bad. Now we got Sinclair giving his year 1 intro. Jeffrey Sinclair is definitely an interesting case. And it's something that the newbies have been talking about a lot in terms of what they think about him. For the most part, they like him. They feel he's a Kirk-esque character who gets himself in trouble a little bit too much, but that's normal. And of course, we're going to be talking a lot more about Mike O'Hare with the newbies as we get closer to the end of season 1. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. This is a spoilerly commentary. So this episode is pretty interesting when it comes to, hey, Mike, I see Mike is here. Good to join me. I appreciate it. Put all your commentary in the track as well, and I'm happy to chime in as we go. I'll have to remember to look both at my screen here and at the chat. So, but again, this is going to be a spoiler commentary. So obviously, Michael O'Hare is going to be leaving the show here come season 1 and at Chrysalis, and we know now, years later, why that was the case in terms of his mental health. JMS kept that to himself until Michael O'Hare unfortunately passed away. And we are going to talk about that more with the newbies, but we're not there yet. I will say, though, it is interesting to watch this episode with hindsight being 2020, because I think O'Hare is definitely acting here a lot, but he looks really haggard in this episode, more so than usual. And I wonder in the back of my head if this was not filmed in a time where it was rough for him. Now, Catherine, written by Catherine Denerin, I just missed her name, so I apologize if I mispronounce it. You may not know that name, but you should, because at this time, she was married to the showrunner of Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski. They are now no longer married, but they are close friends. And if you read his book, Becoming Superman, you can learn more about that relationship that spans decades and is really a really interesting and close and loving relationship that I think was good for both JMS and for Catherine, based on what I've read. But she did not have an easy time writing this episode because JMS did not want her to write it. He, as he said back in the 90s in the Usenets, he hates nepotism, hates it. So he made her jump through so many hoops to get this script greenlit for the show. He told her that she had to write the entire script, not just an outline. She had to give him the entire script, and then it had to go through all of the producers. And if anyone turned it down, it was dead. But everyone loved it. So here we got Jaquan. And this is our first discussion of Jaquan, which in this is just really a little bit of knowledge here about, obviously, Jakar says he is the highest ranking person on Babylon 5 who follows Jaquan, but we also hear from Natath later that Jaquan is not the only leader, religious leader that people follow. So spoke to Jaquan at the dawn of all mornings. There we go. Now, so Jaquan is obviously going to be a big factor in B5 moving forward. But I love in season 1 how we don't know that yet. It's a passing line. Jaquan, he's got a flower named after him, the Jaquan Eth. But we're going to find out that Jaquan was there when the shadows were on Narn. Jaquan was there when everything went bad for the Narn. And Jaquan wrote this all down. And he is going to be one of the major reasons why the races now are more prepared for the coming of the shadows than the last 1,000 years. So Jaquan is huge in this, and we hear about him for the first time, and it's about a flower. It's great. Okay, so this is where I start having flashbacks to labor relation days. Okay, so Mike in the chat says the reason why Sinclair Michael O'Hare looked haggard is he had a side job acting in something else, and he came in looking like that, and they told him it was perfect for the episode. Dude, I had not heard that before. Thank you so much. I'm going to have to do some research on that before we record our discussion because I don't want to sound stupid when we do the podcast. But that is why we're going to start doing these commentaries more because I want your knowledge. I want your experience. So this is great. Bye, Jaquan. Somebody on Facebook said that this episode is all about Narn Bitcoin, and I get it. I'm here for it because that never happens with lowest bidders in terms of government installations, does it? The cheapest stuff possible. That is something too. And during um, all too often, and these guys aren't doing it because Sinclair is a good guy, but I've seen before where organizational leadership will say, yeah, we don't pay you enough, but really that wasn't the problem here. The problem was shoddy workmanship, or we had some bad tech, and we had to go ahead and upgrade our systems. Really, if we do that, it's all fixed, and it's much cheaper than paying you all for your job or making sure you're not working 2 or 3 shifts. But that's normal, unfortunately. And we do know that the writer of this episode is very much big on workers' rights, and so I think that does bleed throughout this episode. I love the Londo Jakar interactions we have throughout the series, but I love that they're coming in so fast and quick in season one. Just last week, we did Signs and Portents, and you have the scene outside the elevator where they're yelling at each other with that one poor guy in between them. And now you've got this one too, where they just hate each other, and it's perfect. And their relationship obviously is going to grow and change throughout this 5-year arc, and actually this 20-year arc. And it's great to see the beginnings of it here. I also love Natoth. She is one of my favorite characters, and I'm so sad we don't get more of Natoth after a brief stint in season 1, a new actor in season 2 for a few episodes, and then she returns in season 5. But I love Natoth. This guy is the smarmy politician. I don't like smarmy politicians. A little bit behind the scenes as well too. I am a smarmy politician. I'm a recovering politician. I was an elected official several times, and people like this I've dealt with, and I don't like them because this guy is a hard ass right now. He's coming to like, you will follow the budget, you will do this, you'll do that. But in the later scene, we're going to see he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. They invoked the Rush Act. I really didn't want them to, but oh man, they decided to do it without my input. I'm like, you're so full of it. Yeah. I do also like the fact that this is not a station where the leadership is in complete control. You've got its own TV network, as we just heard, or radio network. I'm assuming it's TV, Babcom, that is running its own news. So not only are these guys having to deal with the politics back home, but they're having to deal with internal wranglings as well. And then later on in this episode, we will see a journalist tracking Sinclair down, which I don't think is the best scene in the show, but we do see again that these guys are having to be pulled in multiple different directions. Yeah, Mike says that the actress playing Natoth does come back in an episode, not as Natoth. The reason why we lost her character Natoth at the end of season 1 is she just couldn't handle the makeup, which I don't blame him. I mean, that makeup is insane. You got the contacts, you've got the claustrophobic makeup, and she decided just not to come back for season 2. And the actor they got for season 2 took Natoth in a different direction, which, as I'll talk about when we get to that point in the podcast, I was not happy with that direction either, and neither was JMS. So Natoth got sidelined. But luckily, we do get her back, both in the extended universe stuff, but also in later episode in season 5. I don't want to hear the word strike, even though we are absolutely definitely striking right now. The fine lines of labor relations. You can go ahead and I'll do a sick out, but as soon as you say the word strike, even though we are striking, as soon as you say the word strike, we're in trouble. I like this guy. I like Garibaldi too, but I do like this guy. The one playing the dock worker who lost his brother. I've worked with guys like this, and some people have said that the acting of the secondary actors in this episode is kind of questionable, but I've seen workers like this. I've seen laborers who just like don't take shit from anybody. Right now, he's giving Garibaldi the death stare, arms crossed, going, I don't give a crap what you say. I am so tired of this, and it's over for me in terms of listening to you. The eyes he gives him right there, the little squint. That's really good acting. I really appreciate this guy. He's one of my favorite little throwaway characters, and we'll see him a couple more times too. I like him. And the same thing here with this labor negotiator. Well, not she's not a negotiator; she's labor leader. But these are people who are truly have drank the Kool-Aid when it comes to workers' rights, and they're all over the place. And they are the unsung heroes of labor relations because they are the ones who sit in hours and hours and hours of negotiations and don't back down and fight the good fight for their union or fight the good fight for their whatever guild or whatever you want to call it. And I've worked with several of them over the years, and you want to strangle them if you're on the other side of the table, but that's their job. That's what you want to do. Same shot as earlier because we're on a budget. See, I think the thing that really makes O'Hare look different in this episode is he's got the 5 o'clock shadow. I think that's the key. He's also got some bags under his eyes, but man, he just looks tired. And I understand why the character would be tired. He's being pulled in 3 or 4 different directions right now, and then he's gonna get pulled in by Jaquan and Londo's crap later on too. But it's just interesting because it's really only this episode. We don't see this again. And oh, S. Murphy just joined the live chat and says to help the newbies like Ivanova more, you need to sing her song after they watch Grail. Uh, I'm not a singer, but I do like the song. I'm assuming there's a couple different things we can go with there. Uh, I've given that look to labor negotiators many a times, like, oh God, you're right, but what the hell am I supposed to do? I can't give you a 15% raise. I don't have the money. What do you want from me? Oh, let's negotiate some more. This, the interaction between the odd couple that is Londo and Jakar is great here, but I have to question how this would ever happen. For one, there's no way Londo left his door unlocked. And of course, he jokes later that he changes his code. But one, I don't think Jakar. Well, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it to myself. Maybe it is. Maybe Jakar is so obsessed with this plant that he goes ahead and he gives up the code he's had for a while to break in. But I also question if Londo would ever let this happen without like screaming bloody murder. But of course, the scene works well, and these two actors, Peter Jurasik and Andreas Katsoulis, they're just freaking made for each other, aren't they? This is something that Londo is so good at, just digging in and just driving people insane. Like, oh, you have this plant that we, probably almost put extinct because we devastated your planet, but then we have it and we just use it to get drunk off of and we get use it to get high off of. So now you guys just use it for incense when you should be using it to get drunk and high. It's just, it says so much about the cultural destruction that the Centauri did to the Narn that we just use your plants for to get off and get high. And Jakar's face here says it all. Like, you're just disgusting to me. Yeah, Mike says Jurassic and Katsoulis are your two favorite actors in B5. I have to agree. I mean, I also would say that Mira Furlong is amazing. As well, everyone in this show is amazing. Let's be honest. I mean, there's some really good casting in this show. But yeah, I mean, I come to this every week for my Jakar and Londo time. I absolutely do. That's without a doubt. Smarmy politician scene number two. Again, watch here where he is very much a hard ass saying, we're sending in a negotiator, blah, 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 blah. But then the next time we see him, the third time we see him, he's going to be all conciliatory and say it wasn't his fault because politician. Sento. I've worked with labor negotiators on the business or organizational side rather than the union side and labor side. And if this guy is the best labor negotiator they got, they've got some problems because this guy is a dick. For one, you don't do labor negotiations coming in wearing your prize suit, and you don't go in just being a complete and total cocky asshole. The goal of being a labor negotiator is you can try to find compromise and you can try to let people realize that you're not trying to screw them. You may actually screw them at the end because that's what negotiation somewhat turns into, but you don't try. This guy is he is definitely the weakest part of this episode. I think the actor comes in playing what's on the script, which is smarmy asshole number two, but um, it doesn't really work for me. But it definitely makes the other side of labor negotiations the bad guy, which is what you're trying to do in this episode, because obviously the workers are right. At least that's the narrative we're going with. I have the money. The the fact that Peter Jursic can just chew scenery like it's candy is just so. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? I can see that. S. Murphy just said apparently it was Andreas's idea to play the elevator scene in Convictions as a comedy. I've well, as we're recording this, and this story has been around for a while, but JMS just retweeted again, saying that when they started filming The Gathering, Katsoulis went to JMS and said, "I've decided I'm no longer going to call him Jakar. I'm going to call him Jakar because he's French." And JMS is like, "Okay." So Jakar's French. So it's just how an actor can kind of decide things, much like the reason why the Centauri have our little heads here is because Peter Jurasic had a joke about it and it stuck. And so now every Centauri, for the most part, has the hairpiece because it was started as a joke. So it's just fun how these things kind of start and happen. The Toth is at your service. See, this is the only acting I don't like in this episode. I can assure you that I am not a smarmy dick. I again, I've been through negotiations. I've been through heated negotiations. I've been through negotiations where people want to literally throw things at people, and I've been in negotiations where people have actually thrown things at people. No one acts like this because everyone knows if you act like this, you're just going to get them to dig their heels in more. You're not going to get any kind of compromise. And of course, you can argue with me, well, there was no plan for compromise. They came in knowing what they were going to do in terms of the Rush Act. Fine, but still, why start a riot? Why be such a dick? I like this line coming up. I think we know where the fat went. I assume in my head canon that Jinxo's in this room somewhere. It's just she says that my people have been a part of Babylon 5 from the beginning. Some of them actually helped build the station. So I'm assuming that if Jinxo isn't running around down below trying to not get himself killed, he's in this room right now. Which, by the way, when we get to Grail, we had the great opportunity to interview the actor who played Jinxo, Tom Booker, and he is such a delight. And you're going to hear his interview both on our Grail discussion when that comes up, but we'll also release the full interview that we did when we get there as well too. He's a fun one, and it was so good to have a chance to talk with him about working with on Babylon 5. And actually there was some interesting little tidbits he shared about how he may have been a different character, a more prominent character on Babylon 5, and just barely missed out to another actor on that one. But you'll have to wait to listen to the interview to find that out. I can't give away all our secrets without you having to listen to our stuff. Eduardo. Yeah, Murphy, I can see that they're trying to provoke them into using the act, but again, there's better ways to do that. And maybe it's just strategically fine. It makes sense, I guess, but we could have had a better actor doing this, or a better direction for the actor, because he's just coming off like a total dick. I suggest I get a shave. Yeah, you look very tired, Sinclair. Yeah, it's very late for you. Sidebar meeting is what that's called, by the way. We're going to sidebar this. By the way, yes, I am aware that the Rush Act was named after Rush Limbaugh, which sigh. I try not to speak ill of the dead, and I will continue that trying to not speak ill of the dead. But yeah, it's named after Rush Limbaugh, and I'll leave it at that. So, what do you all feel about Miss Conley on the live chat? I got Murphy and I got Mike in here. And then also, if you're watching this down the road, in the comments below, tell me what you think about her, both the character and the actor who's playing her. Because I got mixed feelings on it. I think she does a decent job. I don't think she knocks it out of the park, though. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about it, about her. This is the first Zoom meeting on Babylon 5. I've learned to appreciate Michael O'Hare more in this watch through. As I've said on the podcast a couple times, I usually skip through a lot of season one. And so the last time I probably watched all of season one fully was probably back in 1994, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I've done a full watch through since. And so watching this with the newbies episode by episode has really helped me to get a better appreciation for season one and a better appreciation for Michael O'Hare. I think he's done a really good job so far. There's some questionable things that I think make it to where it's a little harder to have the character ingratiate onto me. And of course, at the end of the day, I am absolutely a Sheridan fan. So I am waiting for Bruce to arrive and join the team. I have my little action figure here of Captain Sheridan. But Sinclair is doing a really good job. Michael O'Hare is doing a really good job here, and I really appreciate what he's been doing with the role. And it'd be interesting to see what would have happened if we would have got Michael O'Hare for all 5 seasons. For one, we would have had a different story. We've kind of discussed this a little bit on the podcast, but the assumption is, and it hasn't been all written down, but based on just assumptions and based on research people have done over the past 30 years, the idea that we've come up with, that we think what the original plan was called Babylon Prime. And the idea was a Sinclair wasn't originally Valen. Sinclair was a chosen one who would merge the Minbari and human species together. And B4 did not go into the past. B4 actually went into the future. What we would have found by season 5 is the Shadow War is not going well, and Babylon 5 is destroyed. And that is when Sinclair goes and grabs B4 from the past and brings it into the future. And that actually would have started a new show called Babylon Prime when JMS had a plan for 10 years rather than 5. And of course, those plans changed as we got deeper into season 1 many ways, and we got the Sinclair Valen connection. But it'd be interesting to see in an alternate timeline what Babylon 5 would have looked like under JMS's original plan. Oh, we got some stuff coming in the chat here. She does okay, but I suspect that the director was the weak link in this episode. And don't union reps usually work the job they rep the union for? Is what Murphy asked. She doesn't come across as a docker. And then Mike says, I think it depends on the size of the union. You're both right. Okay, so depending on your union, you may have somebody who actually works for the union be elected as a representative. However, for larger unions that may be a part of an affiliation, and I'm sure these dock workers are a part of like a intergalactic affiliation, they have folks who are picked to run these things and elected from experts in the field who do this. And as she points out, she is the daughter of a dock worker. And she has lived with dock workers her whole life. So she knows it. She's not somebody who's just coming in cold like this douche over here. So I've seen this happen before where people who know the trade well, but don't come from the trade can still be really good negotiators and union reps because they know it, but also they've got the experience and the education to really run that conversation, that negotiation well. One of the things our newbies have had issues with a lot, and I don't blame them, is trying to figure out how EarthGov works. We continue to talk about President Santiago, and we'll talk about President Clark down the road, but we also have the Senate, and the Senate seems to have much more control over what is going on than the president does. And I think my assumption, and it's just an assumption, is really the president is a prime minister in this kind of parliamentary piece. But because this is an American TV show, instead of having a prime minister and a parliament, we have a president and a Senate, even though it is an EarthGov. But it is interesting that the Senate has much more control over what's going on than what the president seems to have, at least now. That will change, of course. Yeah, Murphy, that's one of the assumptions. He said in the chat that I think I remember reading one version that was Sinclair and Delenn would have a son who would become Valen. That's something that we think probably would have happened. I don't think GMS has actually said that outright. And if he has, I stand corrected. But absolutely, the plan was for Sinclair and Delenn to be a couple. And originally the plan, as we mentioned in the gathering, is was Delenn was meant to be male to begin with, and was going to transition to female in order to make that coupling happen. For many different reasons, that's not the way they went, starting with Midnight in the Firing Line. They started working on having Delenn be more a female character to begin with, and then she just transitions to being a half human, half Minbari hybrid. But that was the original plan. And of course, the coupling we see of Sinclair and Delenn kind of carry over from, I'm sorry, Sheridan and Delenn carry over from that. This scene is fun. If you've ever administered a staff and you've had the staff have a bad day, you've been here. I've been a director of an organization. I've been in this room. This journalist rubs me the wrong way, though. She's trying way too hard. The actor is just trying way too hard. I think there could have been a better way to handle this journalist. I think having the journalist in there, again, shows that Sinclair is being pulled in multiple different directions, which I appreciate. I just don't like the way she played it. Now, that being said, this is pure Ivanova here. And this is, our newbies are starting to get to love Ivanova as much as we do. But I'm looking forward to see what they say with this scene right here. where she just screams three, and then Garibaldi comes in and goes 2-1. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. Smarmy politician scene number 3. Oh, he's done it. Lauren Zinto has created an uproar. I tried so hard to make this not happen the way it happened. You're so full of it. Playing both sides. The worst kind of politician. Behind the scenes, I got a text from Emily, one of our newbies. She's watched this a few days ago, and she says, I freaking hate Hidoshi. I'm like, I agree with you. Let's talk about it. They did. Murphy, we haven't dropped survivors yet, but yeah, Jessi has come around. She is on Team Ivanova now. And you're going to hear that happen. And also, Jessi has come around to the show. Wait until Signs and Portents, which, by the way, if you're wondering, By Any Means Necessary was aired first before Signs and Portents, but we are using the HBO Max version. So this is actually, we recorded Signs and Portents last week, and we are doing By Any Means Necessary this week. And it will drop in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, our discussion. It's going down. This has happened far too often in human history. The idea that a worker strike is being shut down. May Day is one that's a huge one about this. There's so many. See, I like that character. We've already had a couple conversations where Garibaldi has pointed out that Garibaldi is a blue collar guy, and really, if Garibaldi had a different life, he'd be on the other side of this. He'd be one of the dockers fighting for his rights. But unfortunately, he's put in the place where he has to do this. And you can see here too, Garibaldi's one big job is keeping her safe, trying to get her out of the fray. He knows it's going to go down. There's nothing he can do about it, but he's got to get her out of there, because if she gets hurt, then we have a huge problem. Punch him in the face. Yeah, he knows what's coming. See, he's a smart guy. If we were talking earlier about how labor negotiations would have happened with a guy elected from the Dockers, he would have been the guy. And he can see, he's like, this, nothing good is going to come from this. We won this little fight, but we're going to lose until Sinclair comes in and be Sinclair. By the way, whenever you hear we should strike, it's actually the director, Jim Johnson. This is so smart. And this is how you do it. This is how you make policy work for you. You find loopholes. You find loopholes. Read everything, folks. Read the fine print. There you go. What? She wants him right now. She's like, I want to buy Sinclair dinner right now. Garibaldi being Garibaldi. Just in case, just so you know, that's you. You're good. The body armor that security wears is interesting to me. I mean, obviously we're on a budget here, so it's just, some leathery looking get up with some cuts in it, but I'm trying to figure out how in canon that is supposed to help, but whatever. Back to work. Oh, again, as I said, I am a blue collar guy. I've moved up to having a collar, but I grew up in a middle class family, and my dad's a steel worker, and my mom worked at the exact same steel plant. So I have an affinity for workers' rights, and this episode just it gets me right in the feels. It's a padded armor AC2. Thank you, Mike. That makes everything make more sense to me. I appreciate it. You use your Voyager technobabble to help me out on that one. I appreciate it. It looks like something somebody would wear at a Dom party. It's like, hey, I've got the swing in the back and I've got the muzzle ready to go. And it does not look comfortable. It's right up on his neck a lot there. Jerry Doyle's like, I need to get the hell out of this thing. The fun never ends for Jeffrey Sinclair. You stopped a riot, and now you got to deal with Jakar and Londo. Okay, so they do bring up why he looks haggard. I forgot that line. This makes me a very cranky man. I've used lines like that before. My staff always knows not to talk to me before 9 a.m. Yeah, but that was perfect. Jakar. Yeah, but oh, Londo's got the weed going. Bad, bad Londo. I think this is our first marijuana commentary in B5. It's not harmful. Alcohol is worse. Well, I'm sorry. That's just the way the rules are. Can't buy that. Go buy some booze. Londo is a sadistic person, and I love it. I'm here for it. And in purple, he is stunning. Here's Sinclair being Sinclair again, but it's not too late. I read the fine print. Hmm. It's a nice little coincidence, isn't it? Just happens to fall in perfectly there. But, for the story, it's nice. It just might be. That's the other thing too with Sinclair's character we just didn't get because he left us so soon. Is there's definitely more of a spiritual nature to Sinclair than there is to Sheridan. We saw that in Parliament of Dreams. We see it here. Now, of course, they do make Sheridan more of a holy guy in terms of his background, hanging out with the Buddha and stuff, which I think was as a carryover from Sinclair's character. But it's interesting that Sinclair is more of the spiritual nature. Smarmy politician scene number 4. Oh, yes. You did it perfectly, Sinclair. That's a good point, Murphy. Murphy says that the armor would work by trying to dissipate the heat of the plasma shot because, as we know, PPGs are plasma rather than projectile because having projectiles in a space station would be kind of a bad idea. So I'll take it. Okay. I got it. I beat you to the punch. You just put in the chat what I just said. Ha. This will come back in eyes. Again, even bottle episodes in Babylon 5 become not bottle episodes because Lauren Zento has friends, and in eyes, we're going to see one of those friends. Yeah, I agree, Mike. It's something that I don't catch often in terms of Sinclair's religious background and religious journey because I just don't watch season one like this. But I have been with the newbies, and I've also gone on my way not to binge. So I just watched By Any Means Necessary for the second time here because I watched it before this commentary. But that's the second time I've watched it, but I have not watched what's next. So I'm with the newbies on that too. So I'm watching it like I would have back in '94, 1 week at a time. Of course, in the back of my head, I know what happens next, but it's still an interesting watch. You know, this shot is cute, but it annoys me because look up top where the outcropping of the station is. It's moving with them. Now we're going to see in a second the station. Look at that. See now the outcropping is not moving because the station is rotating within the braces of it. So somebody didn't do their research on that, and I'm going to nitpick them for it. So that was By Any Means Necessary. I enjoy this episode. I think this is a fun one. I think not only is it fun just because, again, my background, but also it's fun because it gives us so much character work. It gives us a look at Sinclair more. It gives us more of Jakar and Londo. It gives us Jaquan for the first time. It lets us know that Jakar is more than just an ambassador. He is also a religious leader on Babylon 5. And of course, that's going to come back to be a huge part of this show as we move forward. So I do enjoy it. I'm looking forward to talking to the newbies about and see how they feel. We're going to record our episode here in a few days, and then we're going to go ahead and release it to you all probably in a few weeks. So stick with us. Again, if you haven't subscribed to us already, you can subscribe to us here on YouTube, but that's also in the comments down below. You will see links to how to subscribe to our podcast. We are on any and every podcast app you can think of, and you can find all the links at anchor.fm/Gray17 podcast. Again, that's anchor.fm/Gray17 podcast. And the other thing I would recommend is on that same page, you can find our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram links. And we are very active on both Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. The folks who have been chatting with us here today came over to us from our Facebook. At least I know Mike did. So please come over and chat with us. We love talking B5, and it's going to be an amazing time, folks. I released a couple of things last week about the reboot. I first released a primer about what I thought was going to happen this week in terms of what JMS had up his sleeve. And I'm happy to say I was about 90% right. And so later on, we got together what we were calling the League of Non-Aligned Podcasts. Several Babylon 5 podcasts got together and talked about what we did to blow up Twitter on Monday. And it was a fun conversation. And I don't have any insider knowledge, but I am someone who pays attention. And I think within the next few weeks, we're going to have some good news. And when that happens, we will be all here for it. And we're actually already starting to have conversations internally about how we're going to handle a reboot, because that was not part of the plan when we started this thing, because our newbies are not going to be ready for a reboot because we've already heard that the reboot's going to start with Captain Sheridan. So I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out as we go. And so we'll definitely be talking reboot, as well as the other B5 project that's going to be coming out that's already been recorded, where JMS got together the surviving main cast and did something. He hasn't said what that something is yet, but we're looking forward to hearing what it is. I think it's going to be an audiobook. That's my guess, an audio drama. But we're going to find out. So there's a lot of B5 coming, guys. We're entering a new golden age of Babylon 5, believe it or not, and I am here for it. So we yelled louder than Jakar at stroke 39. Yeah. Well, I gotta tell y'all, this was fun. We're gonna be doing this more often. It's not just gonna be me. I know Blake is planning on doing some of these. We may do some group commentaries, and I will tell you one thing we do have planned, which is gonna be fun, is we're gonna have the newbies and the veterans watch TKO for the first time together. TKO is an interesting episode. I know there are some people out there who love it. Ryan from Yum Yum, I'm looking at you. And there's some people who hate it. And so I'm looking to see if we're looking forward to see what the newbies do. And so we're going to do our first live reaction to TKO in a few weeks, and we'll announce when that's going to happen so you all can set your clocks for it. But that's going to be fun. So we're definitely going to be doing more with YouTube as we move forward, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much for you guys who were in the chat with me today. I really appreciate not being alone for this. Hopefully you'll continue to hang with us. These are going to be sporadic. I'm not going to set a certain time because it just, I got 3 kids at home, and so we'll hop on when we can hop on. But if you want to know when we do go live and we do these, make sure you click that little bell notification. Subscribe as well too, obviously, but hit that bell so you'll get notified as soon as we do go live, because it's going to happen more often, and we're looking forward to it. Yeah, Mike says, I love every episode of B5. There are just some I love more than others. Yeah, that's what I tell my kids. I love you all, but some of you I love more than others. Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Please, again, make sure you like and subscribe, and go check out anchor.fm/Gray17 podcast, and join us over at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the conversations. And we will be back here again for more commentaries. I'm probably going to go backwards too and do commentaries for the episodes we've already recorded for the podcast, just so I'm a completionist. And it's going to be fun. And then we'll probably do some other fun stuff too, some additional chats and everything else. And we've got some other news coming to your way here soon. So be sure to join us on the social media so you can hear that news as it comes. We've got some fun interviews we're setting up. We've got some other opportunities where you can interact with us as well too. This has been so much fun. We started this a few months ago, and we said, it would be cool if just getting together as friends and chatting about this show, and maybe some people will listen. And within 2 months, we've had 5,000 listens, and that is just freaking extraordinary. And we are so happy that you've all joined us, and we hope we can continue on this journey with you as we go through all 5 seasons of Babylon 5, and maybe, just maybe, a reboot series as well too. Have a good night, folks. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks, everybody.